On the 10th of May, 2026, 100,000 people packed into Camp Nou to watch Barcelona beat Real Madrid 2-0 and lift their 29th league title. And somewhere in that crowd, you can guarantee there was a kid asking their dad a very simple question. Why does this matter so much? It's just a league, right? 20 teams, 38 games, most points wins. Except, it isn't, because La Liga is the only league in the world where the two biggest clubs are literally owned by their fans, where a team refuses on principle to sign anyone born outside one small corner of the country, and where a dictator's regime, a kidnapped transfer, and a 90-year-old grudge are all still shaping what happens on the pitch every single weekend. So let's actually explain it, how La Liga works, how it got here, and why it's unlike anything else in football. Start with the machine itself, because the mechanics matter. La Liga, officially the Primera División, currently branded La Liga EA Sports for sponsorship money, is the top tier of Spanish football. 20 clubs. Every club plays every other club twice, once at home and once away, which gives you 38 match days stretching from mid-August to late May. 3 points for a win, 1 for a draw, nothing for a loss. Finish top and you're champion of Spain. Simple enough, but here's the first thing that separates Spain from England. If two teams finish level on points, the Premier League looks at goal difference. La Liga doesn't care about your goal difference, at least not first. Spain uses head-to-head record. If Barcelona and Real Madrid finish on the same points, the league asks one question: what happened when they played each other? Whoever won the head-to-head takes the higher position, which means every Clásico is potentially worth more than 3 points. It can be the tiebreaker that decides an entire championship, and it has been. Atletico Madrid won the title in 2014, partly because of exactly this rule. In Spain, beating your rival twice isn't just bragging rights, it's insurance. At the bottom of the table, the trapdoor. The 3 lowest placed teams at the end of the season drop into the Segunda División, Spain's second tier, and lose the broadcast money, the prestige, and often half their squad. Coming the other way, the top 2 teams in the Segunda are promoted automatically, and the 3rd spot goes to the winner of a playoff between the teams that finish 3rd through 6th. It's brutal, it's beautiful, and it means that in April and May, the matches at the bottom of the table are often more dramatic than the ones at the top. Ask Espanyol, who survived on the final matchday in 2025 while Leganés went down. 1 game, 1 result, an entire year's revenue swinging on it. Then, there's the golden staircase at the top. Finish in the top 4, sometimes top 5, when Spanish clubs perform well enough in Europe to earn a bonus spot, and you're into the Champions League, worth potentially over 100 million euros. Below that, Europa League places, usually 5th and 6th, with 1 spot reserved for the winner of the Copa del Rey, Spain's knockout cup. Below that, the Conference League. Every position in the table is worth money, which is why a mid-table team fighting for 7th in May is playing for tens of millions, not pride. And individual glory has its own currency in Spain. The league's top scorer wins the Pichichi Trophy, named after a legendary Athletic Bilbao striker from the 1910s, and the goalkeeper with the best goals per game ratio wins the Zamora. Kylian Mbappe took the Pichichi in each of his first 2 Spanish seasons, and those names carry weight here. Messi won the Pichichi 8 times. It's a piece of history, not a stat, but here's where La Liga stops being a rulebook and starts being a story, because none of this structure makes sense without understanding where it came from. The league kicks off in February 1929. 10 founding clubs, and Barcelona win that very first edition by a single point. Athletic Bilbao dominate the early years, Madrid win their first titles in the early 30s, and then everything stops. Civil War tears Spain apart from 1936 to 1939. Players die at the front, stadiums are bombed. Barcelona's club president Josep Sunyol is executed by Franco's soldiers. When football returns, it returns to a dictatorship, and for the next 4 decades, La Liga isn't just a sports league, it's one of the only places where regional identity can breathe. Barcelona's stadium becomes one of the few public spaces where the Catalan language can be spoken in a crowd too big to arrest. Athletic Bilbao carry Basque pride the same way, and Real Madrid, fairly or not, become associated with the regime in the eyes of their rivals, especially after the most controversial transfer in football history. In 1953, both Barcelona and Madrid believe they've signed Alfredo Di Stefano, the best player on the planet. The dispute goes all the way up through Spanish football's governing bodies operating under Franco's government, and the proposed solution is genuinely insane. Di Stefano will alternate, playing for Madrid one season and Barcelona the next. Barcelona, furious, walk away. Di Stefano goes to Madrid, scores 4 goals against Barcelona almost immediately, and powers Real to the first 5 European Cups in a row. Barcelona fans have never forgotten it. That's the thing about El Clasico. It's not a rivalry about football. It's a rivalry about history, identity, and a wound that's now 70 years old and still hasn't closed. That history explains the league's strangest and most beautiful statistic. Only 3 clubs have never, ever been relegated from La Liga: Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Athletic Bilbao. 95 seasons, and those 3 have survived every single one. And Athletic's presence on that list is the miracle, because since the early 20th century, they've maintained an unwritten policy of only fielding players born or developed in the Basque Country, one small region. That's their entire recruitment pool. In a globalized sport where their rivals shop from the whole planet, Athletic shop from a population smaller than many single cities. And they've never gone down. It might be the most stubborn as well as romantic thing in world football. Now, the ownership structure, because this is where La Liga gets genuinely unique. Real Madrid and Barcelona aren't owned by American hedge funds or Gulf states. They're member-owned clubs, socios, roughly 100,000 fans each, paying membership fees, voting for the club president in actual elections with campaigns, promises, and scandals. When Barcelona's finances collapsed and they had to let Lionel Messi walk in 2021 because they couldn't register his contract, that wasn't a billionaire's decision. It was the consequence of a member-owned institution hitting the limits of its own rules. Which brings us to the most misunderstood mechanism in Spanish football, the salary limit. La Liga operates one of the strictest financial control systems in the sport. Before every season, the league calculates a squad cost limit for each club based on its actual revenue, how much it can legally spend on player wages, transfers, and coaching staff combined. If you're over the limit, you cannot register new signings, full stop. It doesn't matter if the contract is signed and the shirt is printed. This is why you'll see Spanish clubs sign a player in July and then spend all of August desperately selling others just to get him registered before deadline day. It's harsh, it's created some genuinely absurd late summer chaos, and it's also why Spanish clubs largely don't carry the catastrophic debt levels seen elsewhere. The league would rather embarrass you than let you go bankrupt. Money reshaped the league in another way in 2015, when Spain finally forced clubs to sell their television rights collectively instead of individually. Before that, Madrid and Barcelona negotiated their own TV deals and swallowed most of the pie, while smaller clubs fought over crumbs. One of the reasons the league spent a decade as a 2-horse race. Collective selling narrowed the gap, and the table has slowly gotten more honest since. Atletico Madrid's titles in 2014 and 2021 broke the duopoly. Villarreal, Sociedad, and Betis regularly crash the European places now. And the present, the 2025-26 season, told you everything about where this league is. Barcelona, rebuilt around academy kids and Hansi Flick's pressing machine, sealed back-to-back titles by beating Real Madrid in the Clásico with 3 games to spare. The title decided by the rivalry itself, which feels almost poetically Spanish. Mbappé won the Pichichi again with 25 goals for a Madrid side in open chaos, burning through managers mid-season, while Barcelona barely blinked, even with Lamine Yamal injured for the run-in. Mallorca, Girona, and Oviedo fell through the trap door. Racing Santander and Deportivo La Coruña, a former champion of Spain, by the way, came up the staircase. The machine reset the way it does every single summer. So when that kid at Camp Nou asks why it matters, here's the answer. Every league crowns a champion. La Liga does something more. It takes a civil war, a dictatorship, a stolen superstar, a region that refuses to compromise, 100,000 fan owners, and the strictest financial rules in football, and it compresses all of it into 38 match days a year. The table looks like maths. It's actually memory, and in August, the whole thing starts again.